Hello, I'm Oral Gibbs, and welcome to Speaking of Everything. And this program is brought to you courtesy of the Windward Island Bank. Windward Island Bank in 3 locations in St. Martin, Phillipsburg, and also in Simpson Bay and Cul-de-sac. The Windward Island Bank for all your banking needs. And also with us is GEBE, Local Water and Electricity Company, serving St. Martin for some 6 decades. GBE for all your water and electricity needs. And with me this evening, I have a very, very, very interesting guest. When it started Oral Gibbs Live back in 1989, he was my first guest. And we went to a new facility, and this is the first Speaking of Everything we're doing from this facility. And he's none other than Deputy Governor Groeneveldt is also an attorney. Welcome to the program. How are you doing?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's nice to be here at your new location.
And thank you for accepting the invitation. We go back a long time.
You're welcome. That's true.
So how are things going so far with you?
Well, so far, I can't complain. The world is upside down, but thank God we're still here in good health and trying to make the best of it and trying to stay safe.
Yeah. And this pandemic has caused quite havoc, right?
Yes, it has. Yes, yes.
And it's left so many people in pain because you lose your family and the funeral is so limited because of the protocol.
Yes, that is true. That is something that must be very, very hard for people to go through.
Yeah.
That you can't take, proper, how you say that? I have the Dutch word in my head. Afscheid. You cannot part.
Right.
Yeah. In the right way from your loved ones, so that must be something terrible to go through. Also, I think what it did is it exposed a lot of needs that we have in the community. A lot of people are suffering. You see a lot of poverty now exposed, and I think we all have to work and do something about that.
And that's so surprising because, growing up in St. Martin, we noticed others as very, well, not wealthy, but we're better off than most of our neighboring islands. And today, like you said, the poverty is really overwhelming.
Yeah.
So how's the work going otherwise?
Well, these days, most of my work is that as a lawyer. I'm doing a lot of cases that involve real estate property.
Really?
Yeah, division of property and so forth. So that's keeping me busy, and that's an area that I enjoy and I like to, resolve those kind of problems. The big issue with those type of divisions is that you have the heirs that are all over the world. Sometimes we have people from St. Martin living all the way in Australia, in England, and then you cannot really trace them or get their address. But then via the courts, you have to find a way to still be able to resolve a division of an estate. Otherwise, if you can't find all the heirs, then the estate remain undivided forever, and that too is, has its problems and a detriment to the development of the economy of the country.
I know there's the over-the-bank issue that's been going on for quite some while.
Yes, I'm aware of that. I've seen that case on the court's docket for many years with a gentleman, I think by the name of Henson.
Right.
And I understand now that it's not yet resolved. And at one point I saw that the government was claiming the property. And I understand that the judge has now ordered a stay, that nothing cannot be done, no long lease deeds can be issued on the property until everything is sorted out.
So the cases that you're handling, are they similar or with involving government or?
No, the cases that I'm handling is private person, private families. As the deputy governor, I'm not allowed, it won't be ethical for me to do cases involving the government. So those I would refer to one of my colleagues. But I do several cases where families have a particular estate that was left to them by the heirs, and the person, the father or the grandfather died, the land is still on his name, and there are so many heirs, sometimes spread all over the world. And one of the principles of the law is if you're going to do a division, that all the heirs have to be involved. So if you can't find, or if there's one or two heirs that do not want to cooperate, then you have a problem. Then you have to go via the courts to get that resolved.
So it's got to be 100% of all the heirs?
All the heirs, otherwise the decision can be challenged. Okay. And then it would be annulled if all of the heirs are not involved. But if you have one or two heirs and they refuse to cooperate, there's a way of going via the courts, and you can either have the judge appoint a marshal to sign on their behalf, or nowadays what is also possible is that we can ask the judge to determine that the judgment can be written in at the cadastre, so that the property can be transferred. So then you don't even have to go via the notary. Because right now, most of the notary offices, they are not doing division of properties anymore because it's too complex. There are too many problems in finding all the heirs, or if one heir doesn't want to cooperate, they still have to go via the courts to get it done.
Someone was telling me that Sumatra is very unique in this area, in that a lot of people purchase land and left it in succession, and when you know they're having problems with their offspring fighting on both sides of the other, not just the Dutch side, but the French side.
Yeah, there's a lot of land issues. I know, I don't want to call the family name, but there's a family that have a lot of land in Colby, and for years they have been trying to divide it. And it's now again in courts, and still they cannot reach to a final decision, because it could become complex, it could be complicated, especially if some heirs are for and others are against. Some would agree to a proposal and others would not accept the proposal, and then that makes it very, very difficult.
Do you think that this will be a problem down the road if and when land tax is reintroduced, because it's on the books?
Yeah.
Do you think that will be a problem?
Well, I think one of the reasons why land taxes were not yet introduced is just because of this problem. You usually don't know who are all the heirs, because if taxes have to be levied on a particular estate, then the amount of the taxes have to be divided equally amongst all of the heirs. But if the heirs cannot, all of the heirs cannot be found, then it would be unfair to tax only some of the heirs while other heirs are not being taxed. So I think that's one of the reasons why, as of now, we don't really have land tax on land on the Dutch side. I know on the French side there's land tax. The land is taxed, especially if you build on it. But we on the Dutch side, it has been contemplated several times, but was never really introduced and enforced.
As an attorney, you think it would be right to do similar to the French side, where you only will tax property where there is building on the property?
Yes, I think if the property is bare land and undeveloped, then I don't think it would be fair to tax the property. Right. But if you have a building, if you have a resident building on it, or commercial building, or if you're farming, the land is generated income, then I think it would be fair that you pay taxes from what the land generate, from the proceeds of the land.
So it's quite interesting because land is so important.
It's very important and it's very scarce. So that's why we have to be very particular and very careful with the scarce land that we have.
I'm sure the families that you're representing, they're impatient by now.
Oh yes, oh yes, because this particular case that I have in mind, the division goes back about 60 to 70 years.
Wow.
Yeah, since the original owner has passed.
That's quite long.
Quite a long time, yeah.
Yeah, because I was in court last year, and the year before last actually, and there was a gentleman there, and he said he had 20 years coming to court, still no settlement.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes it takes very long, but there are ways to get around the long waiting, because you can also look at prescriptive rights, which is a 20-year period.
Right.
Yeah, and recently, a couple of years ago, there was an article included in the civil code that the courts, even if you cannot find all of the heirs, one heir can convince the judge or convince the court to grant a portion of the land. But then there are some requirements that you would have to go through, or would have gone through, or would have to meet, so that the land does not remain undivided forever.
Okay, so prescriptive rights is 20 years, not 30?
It's 20 years to acquire property. If you are using the property and you are of the opinion that it's your property, you have been using it as if you are the owner publicly, no one never challenge you or look to evict you, then the 20-year period counts. Actually, the civil code says 10 years, but the courts usually use 20 years. Because the 20-year period also counts for the owner. The owner has 20 years in which to bring an action against you to evict you. Oh. And if the owner doesn't do that within the 20-year period, then you can be considered the owner of the property, because the owner cannot start a case or start a claim to own the property or to evict you. So technically, you would get the ownership, and then the courts can give you a title, and the land would be transferred in ownership to you after that 20-year period.
Oh, it's quite interesting.
Yeah.
I think we got to go to a quick break, all right? And we come continue speaking right there with attorney and Deputy Governor Mr. Groeneveldt right here on Speaking of Everything.
In order to know what you want out of life, you need to observe, listen, and try it yourself.
Promises, we can make it. If we work together, that's just how it is. Let's stand strong, and serve the land. Working hard as one nation, yes we can.
The more difficult it is to achieve, the more satisfying it is to make it.
Just believe in us, we'll see you through it all. Never give up. Never give up. We can make it.
Never forget those who were there for you. And if you dream big, you might just achieve it.
The power to serve, standing for community. OGB got the power to serve, the power to serve. We got the energy.
Make use of WIB mobile banking with easy access and direct usage of face recognition, PIN code, or fingerprint. Download WIB mobile banking app and make your transaction from anywhere at any time. For more information, visit wib-bank.net/quick-login.
You're watching Speaking of Everything. My guest is Deputy Governor and Attorney Mr. Reynold Groeneveldt. He's my guest here on Speaking of Everything, and we're speaking with him. You know, there's so many issues taking place on St. Martin today. That whole thing you told me about the land and many families spending years in court. What else is on your mind?
Well, in general, what's always on my mind is the well-being of the people of St. Martin, our country, and you know, you want to see the country grow. You want to see government tackle the problems that need to be tackled, such as the economy, education, and you know, do things that would benefit the general population. And I think too often and too much and there's this whole discussion that has been going on. It died down a bit now, you know, whether we are decolonized or we are still a colony. And my opinion is that we have to stop thinking that we are a colony, because then we would act like a colony and we'll be treated as a colony. And if we act as if we are not a colony, but that we are an autonomous country, then we will take charge of our own destiny. And then the other partners in the kingdom, I believe, will assist us. But now if we remain, you know, as we are, trying to be dependent, then you're going to get all kind of problems, because then they are going to set the tone for you, and you won't be able to be setting your own tone and doing what you have to do. We have to rise to the occasion and do what we have to do for our country, for our population.
You know, what you're saying there, I fully agree with. I think what has happened, and a lot of people claim this also, is that after Hurricane Irma, and then with this COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of people panicked, you know, and really felt that we couldn't do it on our own. And they turned to the Netherlands to help. I think they turned for that help, but it was just too much in a way.
The help came with conditions.
Yeah, and it's going to cost us.
Yeah. And I believe my point of view is that, yes, you can need help, but you should be able to help yourself, first of all, and then whatever else you need, then you can approach a partner or a friend or someone else. But we should have had a buffer built up in this country for emergency situations. And let's say after Irma, we needed this 500 million was put in the trust fund. Let's say we would need that amount. We should have had at least 400 million. And then if we need 100 million, we could have gone to the Netherlands and say, listen, we have this we plan to do, we need so much, could you help us with that amount? And I think the situation and the conditions would have been much different if that was the case.
I think when you look at it, we didn't realize at the time what was happening. And you know, better than I, since 10-10-10, we had governments that lasted less than a year, and now we have a government that's serving longest of all of them.
Yeah.
And at the same time, the financial problems that we have, can you imagine 86+ million guilders we loan from the Dutch government just to pay salaries.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
In 18 months.
Yeah, that's a lot of money. Yes, the period that we went through, where some people look at it as growing pains, but I think those were unnecessary growing pains, where government was falling every year or every 8 months. And I am happy to see that look like we have grown out of that development stage, because now we have a government that at least is sitting longer than a year, going on 2 years. I think just this month or so would be 2 years.
Right.
Yeah, so that's a good sign, but still I think we should expect as a people to see more. We know times are difficult, but you have to rise to the occasion, and when things are bad, then you have to show your qualities to make sure that you do what has to be done to better the situation.
So what has surprised you most in the last 12 years? It's the last 12 years because that's since 10.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what has surprised me, I could better say what has disappointed me, is that we have not grown in the way I expected that we would grow after the change in October 2010. I expected the country to grow and mature much faster than we have done. So that you can say it surprised me, but also disappoint me.
Are you surprised at the speed of the recovery in the economy of the island?
Well, not really surprised. I always know, and I always say that we have a lot of potential, and St. Martin shows it time after time. After Irma, our economy started to recover and bounce back faster than Curacao, faster than Aruba. We were growing more than, our economy then was growing more than theirs, although they did not go through a hurricane like we did, and such a devastating hurricane. So St. Martin has a lot of potential. So that's why I said just now that I expected to see more growth coming from the country itself, but also from government, because the potential is there. We can do better than what we have been doing.
I think too, many times we don't even believe in ourselves.
That's true. That's true. And it ties back into what I said, that we have to stop thinking like a colony, or thinking that we are a colony or that we are colonized, and realize that we can do, and we have to do, and we should do for ourselves. And when we do that, a lot of things will just fall in place.
I think what has surprised me most over the last 30 years is that we've never been able to have a good relationship with the Dutch government. It's always a back and forth, always pointing fingers, always fighting. I think we got to get beyond that.
We got to get beyond that, yes. We got to be. And that shows, you know, on our side, that there's still this distrust and mistrust, and we have to get beyond that and learn that when we sit at the table with the Dutch, with the Americans, with anybody, that we see them as our equal, and we feel ourselves equal to them, and not subjected to them, and that we don't get emotional and start accusing them of racism and neocolonialism and that type of thing. We have to first of all rise to the occasion and show them that we are their equal.
Yeah. But then at the same time, our parliament is not showing that example at all. When they challenge the Dutch government on this whole neocolonialism, etc.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I am going to publish one of these days my opinion on this decolonization issue. I have been doing some research, and I have come across what the constitutional lawyers consider to be our first constitution. And that's a document from 1865, 2 years after slavery was abolished. And in there already you can see there's talk about autonomy and self-government back in 1865. So, and I know that there is where the decolonization process started. And it did not start and end in 1955 with the United Nations. It started way before that. And if you look at all the developments that we have gone through as a country and our constitution, then you cannot come to the conclusion that we are still a colony. Maybe we allow ourselves to be treated as a colony, but legally, constitutional, looking at it from a constitutional law perspective, you cannot say we are a colony.
Okay. So you're in your second term now as deputy governor?
Yes, that's correct.
And when that term is going to end?
That term will end in October this year of 2022.
Okay.
Yeah, 12 years we started, the governor and myself started in 2010, so 12 years would be the 10th of October, 2022.
So if they ask you to go back, you'll continue?
Sorry?
If they ask you to continue another term?
As the deputy, I can continue if I'm asked, but I will have to make that decision, and right now I don't know what that decision would be.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you for coming and being my guest on the program this evening, and it's always a pleasure having you. Anything else you'd like to add in closing?
Well, thank you for inviting me. It was a pleasure. I enjoyed the discussion, speaking of everything, and I'd like to wish you continued success with your work that you're doing, and God's blessing in your new studio, your new environment.
All right, thank you very much, and hope that when we have you back, you'll be on the radio part of the program.
Okay,
all right.
That would be fine.
Thank you very much. And
thank you.
Again, thanks. And that's it for now. I'll see you next right here on Speaking of Everything. Until then, good night, take care, bye.